Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Durkin Rivera.
I am Jackie Loapali.
Today, we will talking about our origin of language. One of our topic for today. We will discuss it.
We simply do not know how language originated. We do not know that spoken language developed well before written language. Yet, we have no physical evidence relating to the speech of our ancestor, and because of this absence of evidence, speculations about the origins of human speech have been developed. In fact, there are many speculations about how language started.
There are six sources of origin of language. Number one of this is the divine source. Divine source, the basic hypothesis seems to have been that if human infants were allowed to grow without hearing any language around them, then they would spontaneously begin using the original God-given language. In the biblical tradition, as described in the book of Genesis, God created Adam and whatsoever Adam called every living creature. Hindu tradition, language came from Sarasvati, wife of Brahma, creator of universe. Egyptian pharaoh named Samstichos or Samtik tried the experiment with two newborn babies more than 2,500 years ago. After 2 years of isolation, except for the company of goats and mute shepherd, the children were reported to have spontaneously uttered not an Egyptian word, but something that was identified as Persian word bikos, meaning bread. The pharaoh concluded that Persian, an older language spoken in part of what is modern Turkey, must be the original language. That seems very unlikely. The children may not have picked up this word from any human source, but several commentators have pointed out they must have been heard what the gods were saying. First, remove the key, the cause ending, which was added in the Greek version of the story. Then pronounce B as you would the English word bed without D at the end. Then you heard the goat be. King James IV of Scotland carried out similar experiment around the year 1500, and the children were reported had to have spontaneously started speaking Hebrew. Even in the place called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth as described in Genesis 11:9. Next topic, next sources will be discussed by Miss Jakilo Apali.
The second is the natural sound source. A quite different view of the beginnings of language is based on the concept of natural sounds. The human auditory system is already functioning before birth at around 7 months. So that early processing capacity develops into an ability to identify sounds in the environment, allowing humans to make connections between a sound and the thing producing that sound. This leads to the idea that primitive words derived from imitations of the natural sounds that early men and women heard around them. Among several nicknames that he invented to talk about the origin of speech, by Jefferson 1922 called this idea the bow wow theory. So Jefferson 1922 has two theory. The first is the bow wow theory. In this scenario, when different objects flow by making a cow or cuckoo sound, the early human tried to imitate the sounds and then use them to refer those objects even when they weren't present. So, in English, in addition to cuckoo, we have splash, bang, boom, rattle, buzz, hiss, screech, and of course, the bow wow. So the words that sound familiar to these noises they describe are example of onomatopoeia or onomatopoeia. While it is true that a number of words in any language are onomatopoeic, it is hard to see how most of the soundless things. Example is the low branch as well as abstract concept, the truth. Then the next theory is a poo-poo theory. It is another Jesperson snake's nickname was the Popo theory, which proposed that speech developed from the instinctive sounds people make in emotional circumstances. That is, the original sounds of language may have come from natural cries of emotion such as pains, anger, and joy. So by this route, presumably, ouch came to have its painful connotations. So the ouch kanang connotation is one of an example. And other interjections such as a, u, pew, wow, or yak are usually produced with sudden intakes or of breath, which is the opposite of ordinary talk.
Okay, the number 3 source of origin of language is the social interaction source. The idea is that the sound of a person involved in physical effort could be the source of our language, especially when that physical effort involved in several people and the interaction had been to be coordinated. Then number 4, Jack.
The number 4 is the physical adaptation source. Instead of looking types of sounds as the source of human speech, we can look at the type of physical features humans possess, especially those that are distinct from other creatures, which may have been able to support speech production. Some effects of this type of change can be seen in physical differences between the skull of gorilla and that of a Neanderthal man from around 60,000 years ago. The reconstructed vocal tract of a Neanderthal suggests that some consonant-like sounds distinctions would have been possible. So there are features would guarantee speech like teeth and lips. So human teeth are upright, not slanting outwards like those of apes, and they are roughly even in height. So they are also very helpful in making sounds such as and human lips have much more intricate muscles interlacing than is found in other primates, and their resulting flexibility certainly helps in making sounds like p, b, and m. In fact, the b and m sounds are the most widely attested in the vocalizations made by human infants during their first year, no matter which language their parents are using. Then the next is the mouth and tongue. So human mouth is relatively small compared to other primates and can be opened and closed rapidly. It is also part of an extended vocal tract that has much more of an L shape than the fairly straight path from front to back in other mammals. Then the next is the tongue. In contrast to the fairly thin, flat tongue of other large primates, humans have a shorter, thicker, and more muscular tongue that can be used to shape a wide variety of sounds inside the oral cavity. Then the next is the larynx and the pharynx. The human larynx, or the voice box, is containing the vocal folds of vocal cords. It differs significantly in positions from the larynx of other primates such as monkeys. In the course of human physical development, the assumptions of an upright posture move the head more directly about the spinal column and the larynx drop to a lower position. This created a longer cavity called pharynx above the vocal folds, which acts as a resonator for increased range and clarity of the sounds produced via the larynx and the vocal tract.
Our number 5 source of origin of language is the thought-making source. A similar development is believed to have taken place with human hands, and some believe that manual gestures may have been a precursor of language. By about 2 million years ago, there is an evidence that humans have developed preferential right-handedness and have become capable of making stone tools. The human brain. The human brain is not only large relative to human body size, it is also lateralized, that is, it has specialized functions in each of the two hemispheres. And then the last job is
The genetic source. We can think of the human baby, it is first few years as a living example of some of these physical changes taking place. At birth, the baby's brain is only a quarter of its eventual weight, and the larynx is much higher in the throat, allowing babies like chimpanzees to breathe and drink at the same time. In a relatively short period of time, the larynx descends, the brain develops, and child assumes an upright posture and starts walking and talking. As the summary of our topics about the origin of language, the language started around 150,000 years ago to meet humans' communication needs. Then, the origin of language is under debate as evidence of language before writing is almost impossible to find. Then, one theory argues that the origin of all language was the same, but they slowly evolved and made thoroughly different entities, just like the animals did. However, considering the same root of all language requires more evidence.
the origin of language was perhaps the need to communicate. Maybe the initial words were only howls and hoots, but eventually they evolved to form a systematic way of communication for humans.
So that's all for today's discussion.
Thank you everyone for listening, and goodbye.